this introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is really morning for me. It's about 5 a.m. So I'm really glad, for me, from my time zone, so I'm really glad that this mobile device has only 2 buttons. I think I can cope with that. So before I start, I thought at the beginning that I won a competition here to be a most distant speaker. I came from Europe, from Poland, but I think I have a strong competition here from Australia. But what I just realized during the last speech, that I probably won a competition for the oldest speaker here. So, working with the technology in education since 25 years, at my age probably I'm more entitled to speak about the historical background of education rather than the future. But I try to do some reflections and some summary of what happened or what we have experienced so far. And 2 buttons, yeah. And I was happy to participate in different educational projects based on technology in different parts of the world, from US to Samoa Island. I just learned that the Samoa has a very good situation about the girls there, so I hope that there's a little contribution from our system as well there. So it gives me a perspective of what has so far stopped the technology to come widely into the education. I must say that I was always over-optimistic. I mean, running a business, we were preparing different solutions, we were trying to introduce it to school, but always school and education system was a bit, let's say, reluctant to take it, to adopt it. So I started to think, at my age, what was wrong? What are the obstacles that makes the technology coming to school so slowly? So my first reaction would be to learn from the industries that already went through the digital revolution. So one of those is the music industry. No doubt it goes entirely digital. My kids do not know what is the CD, what is the CD player, not mentioning about long play. So they go there. I mean, they are purely digital. Even if we talk about it or take a look at the ebook market, then we realize that it's going through this direction as well. More ebooks being sold now than the paper version. So these industries are already there. Why education is so slowly adopting technology? And we realize that there are 4 main reasons, probably, which stops that process significantly. First of all those examples I gave you rely on the fact that within the one place, you are able to get all the content providers. So, doesn't matter if it's a classical music or it's a pop or jazz, you are able to get it in the same place. So there are many content providers under the same roof. It's very convenient for the users. The other thing is that all the platforms that you are using are free. It doesn't mean that the content is free, but the platform is free, which is not the case in many situations in education. You can use these ebooks and music, the example I gave you, on every device. No matter if you have a smartphone or tablet or PC, you are able to use it freely wherever you are. What is more important as well, that this industry went through the change because they use the standardized format. This is very engineering and technical thing, but I'd like to assure you, and I'll discuss it a bit later, that this is a very important factor as well. So let's go to the first point, this, let's say, very natural thing about having the same one place for all the publishers, for all the content providers. Let's take a look from the teacher's perspective. Teacher is quite comfortable because usually teachers work with a single publisher, single content provider, and the publisher provides the environment for specific subject. So the teachers think that the materials are integrated into one place. This is the teacher's point of view. The problem is that the students has completely different point of view because they have to work with the different subjects, with the different teachers. And usually in one school, the materials from different subjects comes from the different publishers. And the publishers are supplying it through the different platforms. So there is far from the situation, like an iTunes, like an Amazon, where you can go to the same place and have all materials in the same place on one thing. So what is the situation on the education market today? If you take a look at the publishing industry, we can clearly observe that in most cases, publishers are trying to build their own e-commerce channels. They are trying to build their own LMSs. Even in a single publishing house, we have a situation when different editorial teams are involved in a different type of providers, in a different type of technologies, even different types of LMSs. So even if you go to one publishing house, if you go to the math editorial team or arts, they are completely different. They are completely different in terms of the format, technology, e-commerce, and also the education platform. So the current situation is a mess, is a terrible thing. We have no common, in most cases, non-common distribution platform, no common usage platform, like a common LMS for all the subjects, for all the publishers, and no common data format, which is even more devastating for the digital revolution in education. So imagine that the giant like Amazon will finally take this educational market under their consideration, and they will start to develop a platform to distribute materials. Is it going to be enough? Would it be enough for us to just say that, okay, the first condition is made, so we can finally fund physics, maths, and different subjects there from different publishers? I don't think so. I think that there is an important point which is being missed here, that digital education involves an interactive content, and the interactive content has to be delivered to teachers, to schools, by the platform usually called LMS, which provides a collaboration and communication between teachers, students, often parents. The LMS has also the different role that the LMS stores the performance and the results of the students and reports it back to teachers. We cannot expect it from the platforms like Amazon or any other. We need a dedicated platform. So ebook platform will not work for this kind of a revolution. Ebook format will not work for that because the format is not prepared to store any results of students. And moreover, the mechanism of the distribution of the apps that we can observe now is not working for education as well. We can hardly imagine that pupils will be buying individual materials for themselves to just work with that. So all the elements makes us put us in a very difficult position. So I would like to focus on the one word here, which is very, very, very important: interactivity. What is the interactive content, in fact? Because there are lots of misunderstandings about it. So usually we start from the print material. This is how the world evolving from the print to digital. So if we have let's say a page of the textbook, and we migrate it to a digital format, like let's say a PDF, it's not yet interactive. It's maybe digital, but it's not a revolution. Obviously, this is just a different medium, like we change the paper to digital, but nothing has really happened there. So sometimes we have a situation when the PDFs are enhanced with the videos and audio. This is still not interactive. This is still a passive way to learn. So this is what I call the false interactive. But the things will change when we are going to change a little bit here the material. Oh, sorry, sometimes it's going slow, sometimes it's going very quickly. Good, so I just marked the small elements on the page which requires involvement of the students. So these are these small manipulatives. You have to do something, click something, drag something, and possibly the students will get a feedback out of their work. So finally we get to the interactive format of the learning materials, which means that we are able to do something, learning by doing, obviously, and additionally we are able to give students a feedback because he or she interacts with the material. It's not possible with the video audio only when you are watching that. So finally we are at the stage when the interactive content can be truly interactive, can give a feedback to students, can report results to students, and help us to make a real change in the education. So why this interactivity is that important? You might say this is just the same thing, but like a pen and paper, so you can just mark different blocks here and write something in your exercise book. But there is an important difference. Recent researchers from the US researchers shows us that there is important proofs that makes us look at the learning process a bit different from what we thought so far. They claim that we have focused not necessarily on the, again, it's too early for me. we should focus not as much on getting the knowledge, but we have to focus much more on retrieving the knowledge. They claim, and they prove it in their researches, that information that is being retrieved from in the brain many times is much better learned, much better memorized. So usually we think that the testing is a good way to evaluate students, but they claim that the testing, retrieving knowledge, asking questions is much better way to memorize and to learn even a most complex, not only the facts and knowledge, but also some complex things as well. So how do we learn traditionally? So we learn, we repeat many times, and finally we are being evaluated. So that's the traditional model. What they suggest is to learn, but then instead of repeating, we should retrieve our knowledge. So we have to go through the practice of repeating, asking questions about what we've just learned, what we've just read or watched. So this is a new model, and they also claim that we can even improve this model by making a small change, by introducing a metacognition to our learning, which means that we have to reflect on our answers. So when we are asked a question, we answer that, we need to get immediate feedback in order to memorize better, to understand what are the lacks of our knowledge, what are the strong points, how do we understand it, are we going in the right direction. So this is the way how the learning process should look like. And this is the way how the technology can help us here. This is a screenshot of a typical simple math interactive program. I don't need to, I will not ask you about the answers, don't worry. But just take a look at the mechanism. If I just click any of these answers here, I get immediately a feedback. So I'm informed why my answer is wrong. And it's not just you are great or you are terrible, it's much more, it's just saying why. So what you should learn, what you should memorize, what you should somehow improve in order to get your knowledge better. So if you take a look, every single answer here brings a different contextual feedback. This is a very simple example. I will say this is not a rocket science, but this is how the learning should be performed. It's much more efficient, and the technology here can help us a lot. Additionally, usually about the kind of these conferences like this one, we are talking about the flipped classroom and personalized learning. This is obviously also based on interactivity, which means that if we want to make an experience, personalized experience in learning, we need to dynamically change the way students interact with the material. So we need their input, and we need to modify the algorithm that is being used to give them the next part of the knowledge or explanation. Also, it goes the same, by the way. Whenever we are able to track the students' performance, not only the results, but also the way they're learning, we are able to report it to teacher, and then the teacher can introduce the flipped classroom model, because once the kids are learning at home, getting some new stuff there, noting the process of their learning, we can easily use this report to modify our lecture next day and focus only on these topics and these elements which are difficult, which makes it difficult to be absorbed. Let's go to the second point, free platform. It seems to be obvious. I mean, obviously, we do not pay for the platforms like iTunes, we do not pay for the platforms like Amazon. The platforms are free, and the only thing you pay for is the content. Yep. So these are free. It's not that obvious. I would say I saw many examples, many educational projects when the platforms were paid, although they were empty. So the schools were paying for the platform quite a significant amount of money, and they do not know what to do with them because there is no content inside. So they were not even able to buy anything because the platform was so closed that many of the potential content providers were not able to inject the content into the platform. So this is truly a problem for the education today. We have to change our mindset and say platforms, means of delivery, should not be paid. Let's take a look at the cross-platform compatibility. This is again obvious for us. Many of the services that we're using on smartphone, on tablets, on computers work the same way, so we're using the same user experience. Is it the same in a school? Not necessarily. many of the educational content we see today, many of the platforms are quite limited to the PC only. Sometimes we are working on the mobile platforms, but then they are not that good at the PC. So this BYOD concept is very difficult to be introduced in schools. Bring your own device, but what you can do with your device, with a small smartphone or a tablet, when the platform that you are using and the content that you are using, that does not work there. So, okay. The BYOD concept brings also a big threat, because what I notice in many international educational initiatives, that the first thing that people are trying to do is to buy hardware. Because they think that every single pupil has to be equipped with the hardware, with a piece of the device. Usually this device, which the school or the ministry can afford, is much weaker than they used to use at homes, or what do they have in their pockets. Which is very demotivating, because I mean, they have a very nice smartphone in their pocket, they have a very good computer in their home, but what they are being offered by the school is a cheap, small, low quality tablet, usually, which is very demotivating. So we should stop to think in the terms that we should provide them the device. We should provide the device for those who do not have it. But most of the pupils in most countries have something already. So we do not care about the pen and pencil, we do not care about the exercise book, but we somehow still care to buy them weak, low quality equipment, which is very demotivating for the kids to work on that small and bad devices. The last thing from that, let's say 4 conditions, is about the format. So obviously everyone says this is a simple answer. If we ask today what should be the format of the content, everyone says HTML5. That's a simple answer. But this is also a misleading answer. I'll give you an example. Do you know what it is? You don't. You don't care. Because this is a Word document. So if you use a Word, you don't care about the format. So if I ask you, what is this? What is the next slide? You don't know. This is educational content. It looks like this one. So it's beautiful. It's made in HTML5. It seems to be, everything seems to be okay. The problem is that this content is produced by software developers. So it's not made by the editorial people. So in most cases, this code is being written by the software developers, sometimes in India, sometimes somewhere else. The problem is that once it's created, they can be modified or changed only by software developers. And obviously, editorial teams in publishing houses, no teachers, have a skills and ability to correct or to change this content by themselves. So we truly are in the trap of the HTML5 answer, because it shouldn't be like that. What we truly need, we need an authoring tool. We need an authoring tool like Word, like something simple, easy to use like a PowerPoint, to allow teachers and editorial teams in the companies to create the content by themselves. Do not involve the software developers for any changes, for any comma or spelling mistake. This is really something which is somehow missed in this concept. And as a result, it looks like preparing a simple piece of interactive content costs enormously, because you have to involve the people who are not, say, specialists in education. You go many rounds of the corrections and changes. So imagine we have this done. So everything is ready. How we are going to use it in school? How we are going to use technology in education? How do you like this classroom? I love it. People are engaged. They are talking to each other. They're discussing something. There is a lively discussion in the classroom. But unfortunately, there is no piece of technology there. So what are we going to improve? So now we have an improvement. So we just put a bunch of computers, put the pupils there, and they are working by themselves in the classroom. Is it a solution? Is it the way that technology should work? No, definitely not. So how we can use technology? This is the right way. I mean, this is a more simple way, because the teachers are used to work on the blackboard, so they can use it on the whiteboard as well, interactive whiteboard. That's a very nice model, quite often used, but this is even better. You know, this is a kind of a clicker, probably they are much more better than me. They are involved, they can give an answer, they retrieve their knowledge according to these researchers. So this is much better model. And what is also important, today we do not need a clicker. There are lots of solutions which allows us to use smartphones and computers to vote, to answer the questions, to be involved, truly involved. Every single kid will be involved in this kind of a participation. And this is the model which is being, somehow also omitted in many cases. Students are working at home more and more. They are used to work at home in their own pace, in their own, let's say, way. And the platforms we are using should support these models. So we should be able, as a teacher, to assign a homework, assign a project, and expect students to do it in their own pace, in their own time, in their own conditions, and simply submit the results. So we can clearly distinguish two different models, what I call the synchronous and asynchronous. So we have a synchronous model in the classroom, where we can engage all the pupils, demonstrate something, but ask them also to answer, to participate in our lecture. And we have an asynchronous model where we simply assign some work and ask them to do it in their free time, or the time they prefer to. So any platform, any solution that we are going to, let's say, implement in a school should support these two basic models. That's to me a must. So concluding, having all these thoughts together, I think that in order to bring technology into education, and I strongly believe that technology can change the education to the 21st century, we should hope that, first of all, we'll finally have a common platform that will collect all the content providers, not only commercial, but also the open content as well, that the content will be truly interactive. Remember about the false interactivity, we should not rely on these PDFs or enhanced PDFs. This is not the way that we are going to change the education. We hope that interactive content format will be standardized. It means that we'll have tools available for teachers, for the publishers, to create content by themselves. We can create a PowerPoint presentation, we can create a Word document, we should be able also easily to create interactive content. And I hope that all this content and all these platforms will be BYOD compliant, so any type of device can access that. So, thank you very much. I hope it was interesting.